Good to see you all. It's Charlene Lee, and I am excited here today to be talking about people and what you need to do to prepare them for an AI future. So I want to set up this scenario because it is one of the toughest subjects and most exciting topics, I think, when it comes to thinking about AI strategy. Because I like to say this saying that, again, in all the years, the decades that I have been studying and working with companies on digital transformation and disruptive transformation, that you think it's about the technology and it is never about the technology. It's never about the technology. And it is always, always, always about the people. And so when it comes to AI, this is even more so. This is one of the most transformative technologies we've seen out there now. And again, I've seen a lot. So I began my career with the beginning of the internet back in 1993. And the thing about the bigger the transformation, the more important the people are. And so it's great to play with all the prompts and all the models, and especially with all the agents that you can play with, vibe coding, all the things that you can do with AI. But in the end, we have to set those technologies to the side and really focus on the impact that it will have on people and how people will be using these technologies and changing the way they live, the way they work, and the way people connect. So I'm going to spend some time today going in depth into how it is that we can prepare our people, our colleagues, our teammates, the people in your company to work with AI, to no longer fear it, but be excited about it. And I like to say that the difference between excitement and anxiety, how you move from anxiety to excitement, is confidence. So we'll talk today about how to build that confidence in your people and how to do it systematically, how to think about, again, with agents coming in, and even how to measure success. So let me get some slides here together. And also, let's see, here are the places where you can find the slides. And let me just put this into the comments too as well. Thank you, Jay, for joining today and for sharing what the slides are. For whatever reason, still can't post the link from StreamYard. So anyways, this is what I want to talk about today. First of all, there's a saying that my co-author Katya and I have to say is that the organizations that win with AI won't be the ones with the fewest human employees, because that's very tempting to think that, oh, we can just cut our employees and have tons of AI. No, it's the ones who have the most capable human employees, who know how to use these tools, who can maximize the things that they can do, not just with their current work, but also thinking about how they can change the way work actually happens. And so one of the most interesting things happening is that many organizations are looking at AI as a way to increase productivity, to have greater efficiency. But the most forward thinking companies are also thinking about how it can change the nature of how they engage with their various stakeholders, especially customers, but also how do you reinvent the work that you do, even reinvent the type of business that you're in, choosing where to play and how to win. So again, being more strategic about it, the more, again, ways that you're going to do this. And the only way you can pull this off is if your people are capable of using these technologies to do the work that they do. So again, I think that if you think about what's going to happen to people, it's really about how do we prepare them to become what I call superhuman. So the key thing here is that there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear around what AI could do. There was recently a study that came out of Stanford that showed that some countries like China, other countries in Asia are very optimistic about how AI will impact their lives. So 85% of people are more optimistic about the benefits of AI than the side effects and then the downside. And here in the United States, it's like 35% of people are optimistic. So we're in a very different environment here than we have been in previous technologies. There's a lot of fear and concern and mistrust. And so, in order for people to become what I call superhuman, to be able to do these superhuman things with their work, with their lives, they have to be able to move past fear. So I want to take and acknowledge that this is a significant issue. So how do you move past fear? And the thing here is to build trust. So let me, before I get into doing that, I just want to see if there are any comments here. Yeah, I have a comment from Adam's the whole series, but I love this quote. I am a one-man band. I have to tell you, it has changed my whole business. Adam, I'm right with you. I am a solo practitioner too, as well. And I am back into the thought leadership space, being an analyst and author. And I can tell you, I can do this now as an independent, as a solo entrepreneur. Whereas before, I needed to start a company to be able to do the things I needed. I needed support, I needed people to be able to do this. And now I can do a lot of it without those people. I still have people I work with, but it's a very different environment now than when I started Altimeter back in 2008. That was a long time ago, 17 years ago. So life has changed, the world has changed. And just a quick note, Adam is building an AI agent concierge to reply to people. And I think that's amazing. As an AI is my co-founder, is what he says. And Adam is not alone. I'm here in San Francisco in Silicon Valley, and I hear and see so many AI companies that are AI native and really thinking about scaling in a very, very different way. So, world is changing all around us. But today we're going to talk about people. So that if you are not a solo entrepreneur and that you are working with other people, how do you build these teams? How do you build that competence? And so I want to talk about how do you build trust and moving from fear to trust. So let's define what the fears are that people have. And these are pretty common, but I just want to just name them. They're worried that they won't have a job next year. They're worried that all these years, decades of experience aren't going to matter. They're worried that they're going to go through yet another transformation that the company is doing. Many of them have change fatigue. They see, okay, great, this is another transformation. Maybe I can outlast this one too, because when will the leadership get bored with it and move on to the next transformation? So they're less likely to change. And they also fear AI just being forced upon them. It's like yet another thing that's going to be done to me rather than something that I have some agency and control over. So this is a very real, these are very real fears that people have. And I hear them all the time. And I hear them not just from the usual suspects. You think of an older person, a bit curmudgeonly, they're skeptical and they're digging in the heels. I'm hearing this across all age groups, across all demographics, across many different roles and agents and educations attainments. So I hear it from a lot of young people who are very skeptical about AI and its role and its future, and especially around sustainability and environmental aspects of it. So there are so many people, so many different dimensions of this that you have to be acknowledging what that fear is and that it is very, very real. So I want to go on and talk about just how do you start overcoming this. So a couple things. First of all, be really transparent. And this is not the time to be beating around the bush, to be a bit, sly about things. This is the time for honesty and to be extremely fair in your communications with people, and to be honest about this is what's changing and why. Why is the organization pursuing AI? Be honest about that and really look and say, are you doing it just to be efficient and cut people? Are you doing it to be more competitive? What is the underlying reason of why we're making these changes? And so this is why AI strategy is so important. You have to explain why we're doing things. Set really clear expectations and boundaries as far as you know what they are going to be. But like, for example, saying we will use AI for these things and not for those things. We are intent on focusing on these areas and not those areas. Just be as clear as you can and communicate as often as you can. The one thing I have seen around change is that we do not communicate nearly enough as leaders that this is where we're going, this is why we're going there, this is how we're going to get there, and this is the impact on you. And rinse and repeat. Say it again and again and again. And don't worry about making sure it's done right perfectly every time, because you also have to acknowledge what you don't know. And with AI, There's a lot we don't know. And the more we can be transparent about the fact that we're figuring this out, but this is why we're doing it, this is the direction we want to go in, and we don't have all the answers, but we will communicate them as much as we can. And very importantly, these two last things are dealing with the whole level of how do you systematically build trust and transparency. It's really important to create that space for people to be able to hear what the employees are feeling, how they're thinking about things, what are the concerns that they have. So building that space, that creating that container for them to feel that they can come forward and share what's going on and what their concerns are, to listen, truly listen and not dismiss it, to understand and say, I acknowledge and hear your fears. And then to share what the work in progress is. Don't just come out and say, we're doing this and then disappear for weeks, months. It's constantly saying, this is how we're moving. This is where we're going. This is our progress or our not progress, and just be very transparent about this. So again, I think what you're getting the sense is, again, having a strategy, first of all, is very important. And then being able to communicate, this is what our strategy is. And what I'm finding is most organizations do not have a coherent strategy. So they're not saying anything. And as a result, the fear and the anxiety is building amongst your employees. So get a strategy in place. I again, lots of materials on my website, and we again, Katya and I are finishing up the book. Thank goodness we are finishing it up, and we should be out within the next month, a few months. So the book writing process, I could go on and on. But again, the idea of having a coherent strategy that you can communicate to people to say, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to get there, this is the impact going to be on you, and this is what your role is going to be to play in that future is absolutely important. So I want to give you a quick case study of a organization that did this. So one of the things that is a very large global organization, and one of the things they did is that they acknowledged that there was a lot of mistrust of AI. So they wanted to demystify it and understand that the whole purpose of education and training was to build that trust again in not just the technology but also in the company. So they identified three groups of people. They found that there were enthusiasts. Again, these are the early adopters. No problem with them. They're just off and running to the races. They had this other group called the cautious neutral majority, which I love that name. And that was the vast majority of people, and also skeptics. And they really focused on the skeptics because they realized that these people were really worried, and with good reason. So they really showed them this is what AI does and really broke it down into practical applications of what AI does. Just demystified it. Instead of thinking about it as this big, huge thing, this is the tool, this is what it does. These are the things it can do, these are the things it can't do, and became very practical and addressed it and made it, again, just demystified it to say, this is what AI really is. And so was able to just lower that temperature in the conversations so that people can again begin to say, okay, there's something maybe here. Maybe I'll take a look at it. And then they also train their leaders very specifically on not only how to use the technology, but also how to create that psychological safety space, that space to listen to their employees, to understand what their concerns were, to understand that there are these three groups and what are the concerns, in particular of the skeptics and also of this cautious majority, and be able to hear the questions that are coming in, have people voice their concerns without any judgment. And again, just again, building that sense of transparency, having conversations, and normalizing the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of unknown here. There's a lot of concerns, and it's okay to be able to talk about this. And again, this is not the normal way that companies work. We don't normally have conversations or make time for us to have these conversations around uncertainty. And I think, again, if you want to create an organization of capable employees able to use AI, you need to make that space, make that time to not just barrel through and talk about the technology, how great it's going to be. It's really to listen to where these fears are coming from and address them. So let's see. There's a comment here. It sounds like there's a lot of insecurities from leadership not knowing everything and not wanting to convey to their employees. So they're still seen as we know everything and exactly what we're doing. Absolutely, Alan. I like to say that a key thing that leaders need to do today is to not have all the answers because it's impossible, but instead to be able to ask great questions. And so asking a question, it does not mean that you don't know what's going on. In fact, asking a question can say, this is the question on the table today. Not every question, but this question that we have to answer as a team. I don't know the answer. We collectively don't know the answer. That's what work is. We're going to get to that answer together. So, again, it's a very big shift away from having to be in control, having to have all the answers to be perfect, to a space where it's a very different type of leadership and relationship with your employees that needs to be developed. And what we find with AI ready organizations, and we'll talk about that next week, is the cultures are very different. Again, an AI ready organizations leaders act and work and show up very differently than organizations that are again not going to be able to go as fast. Let's see. And hi, Ramesh. Good to see you too as well. Thank you for joining today. All right, let me go back to my slides. And let's see. I want to talk about the training itself. And the way that Katya and I think about this is that there are two sets of skills you have to develop. First of all, there is AI collaboration, and that is being able to use AI in a very coherent way, be skilled in the tools. So that means effective prompting, being able to evaluate the output. Oh, I saw a typo here. Be able to iterate and refine the results, and then also figure out what tasks you can give to AI and the ones in which AI, especially as agentic AI is coming on board, which tools to use, which tasks can you outsource, which ones do you need to keep as a human. And then there are the critical human skills. These are the things like exercising good critical thinking, having ethical judgment, being able to be creative with these tools, having the social intelligence to understand when somebody may be more comfortable or not, and then also being able to do complex problem solving across different departments, different functions, different roles inside of a team, and understand when to use AI, when to use a combination of AI and humans, and when to use only humans. Now, this is all again, the reality is that there's no training on earth that can teach all of these in one session or a series of sessions of a teacher lecturing to a person, because these are things like judgment that are gained through experience, through discussions, and there's so much still being developed in terms of what are best practices. That training for AI fluency is a work in progress. So I think we want to try to have AI training that looks very, very different. So this is all about having AI training that isn't locked and loaded and stays the same. It is constantly evolving it to make sure it's relevant for the person, for the task, for the job. So the number one thing I would say is that training can't come from on high. It can't be something that IT or HR is doing in isolation. Training, when it comes to AI, has to be a shared responsibility. And that means a shared responsibility across different organizations, across different departments and silos, but also a shared responsibility with the learner to say, these are the things I need to learn, I want to grasp. If it's not available here in this formal type of training, then maybe it's available through the informal training that's out there, because it's developing so quickly that formal training isn't going to cut it. It's just simply, it won't be enough. So, some of the ways to create training is to start with practice, not with theory. It's great to talk about what AI can do and everything, but that's theoretical. Get it down to the nuts and bolts as quickly as possible. And that means this is the problem. This is how you solve it. This is the task. This is how to use AI. This is the job that you have. Here's a very identifiable task, and here are the best practices to do that task within our team. So the other thing is to teach not just execution, but also the evaluation. Is this a good result? What does good look like? How can you tell? And again, you may not always be obvious. And I'm still trying to figure out, is this a good result? How do I get a better result? Very importantly, encourage informal peer learning. Again, I was recently talking to some people, and they were like, "No, our training is us doing work and then getting together over lunch and talking about the new ways that we're using things. And that's how we're learning. It's on the job, continuous, peer based, decentralized learning because the world is moving way too fast to have to wait for formal training to come up from on high. And then lastly, this is about rewarding a mindset versus mastery because I don't know what it means to master this. I feel like I'm constantly learning new ways and discovering new ways to use these tools. And so you want to encourage and really measure and reward participation, not perfection. So if you're using AI, if your teams are curious and creative and exercising imagination, that is absolutely where you want them to be. So reward that, encourage that. And the training needs to really foster those human sides of the skills because that will sustain continuous learning of the actual tools, the hard skills, so to speak, of learning. All right, I want to just go through and see if there's any questions here. Lynn, just going back to this question about leadership, asking great questions is a sign of maturity. It opens doors, illuminates, and motivates. It shows humility and appreciation for others. I love this. Lynn, thank you so much for sharing that. I love this appreciation for others too, as well, because leaders are only as good as their teams. And only as strong as the cohesive team working together. So thank you for that great reminder. And Gussie has this point: ethical judgment is key. Could not agree more. At a future live stream I have coming up, we'll be talking a little bit more about ethics and, in particular, how to ingrain that into an organization. Because it's interesting, we don't often talk about ethics in the workplace because it just doesn't come up. You just do the right thing. And AI is constantly challenging what we believe is right. And what's considered to be right and ethical behavior may not always be obvious. And so we'll get into that later, but ethical judgment, exercising judgment, which means it's not black and white, there's gray, and using judgment to discern what is right in that gray space is a key part of using AI. All right, just a couple more slides, and I'm just watching the time here. So I just want to give a quick case study. I got to dig in deep into IKEA's literacy training program. And one of the things they did I thought was really interesting is they created very role specific training for across their global workforce. So just in general, the coworkers, again, people got some fundamental AI on how to use AI for daily tasks. They got some training on ethical boundaries and then how to evaluate output. So it was very basic, but they got the fundamentals of how to use AI. And then if you had a specialized role that you were going to use a lot more AI, it was going to be integrated into your workflow, you got specialized specific training on how to use those tools for your specific task. And they also got deeper training again into the ethical issues that might come up in the course of their work. So I love this approach because it's, again, very practical. It is not based in theory, and it's based on the specific job that you have and how AI is going to be used for that specific job that you do. And then they identified that leadership needed a different type of training. They would have AI exploration days where people would come and present how they're using it to help them achieve their strategic goals. Again, these are leaders looking at AI being applied in a strategic way. And so this would allow them to think broader, bigger, more expansively about the role that AI could have in reinventing their business. And also for them, very importantly, not only aligned with their strategic objectives, but also the sustainability objectives. And then finally, the tech teams, They go deep. They get very, very detailed instruction on how to configure AI tools within the guidelines of their organization. So I think this is a great way, again, of approaching training is not one size fits all, but very specific to meet the needs of each particular working group. All right. Want to just do a quick dive into AI agents? Again, they're coming, they're here. Again, I think there's a lot more talk about them than the actual practicality of them. The reality is, agents take a while to build into our workflows. And the way I see this evolving is that it's a four-step continuum. We have AI as a tool, which we're using today. We have it as a collaborator. We're using it side by side. As we have these agents are coming in, we have agents working independently within boundaries, and eventually we're going to have AI as orchestrators, where we will not only just allow them to do their work, but AI will actually be leading and directing the workflow. So it'll be sitting there, and it could be directing the workflows of other agents, but they could also be directing the workflows of humans. So the idea that we will have these agents, we already have AI working side by side with us, means that we need to think about what it means to lead humans and AI together. And we need to prepare our people on how to do this. So again, I think it comes back to a couple things. As leaders, being able to set goals that both the people and AI understand. Because you don't know in a particular circumstance, are you going to have people doing it? Are you going to have AI doing it, or a combination of the two? So having goals that clear, expectations that are very clear, definition of success that both AI and humans can understand is absolutely crucial. Defining the boundaries of autonomy. Again, what can AI be allowed to do? What are the boundaries of that? And knowing and being very clear, this is the box you're going to stay in. And until you can prove that you can do this really well, that's not going to expand. But we do the same thing with humans and with the combination of the two. Again, designing the processes and workflows as we are integrating AI into our workflows that also can integrate that very human skill of human judgment. And then finally, creating that space for people to do what we do best, think creatively, be empathetic, and to be able to strategize against our objectives. Again, I do believe that AI is going to get better and better at some of these things, but being able to understand how we're going to have to intersect is absolutely crucial in order to prepare our people. So last slide, and then I'll see if there are any other last comments. Um, Again, measuring success, there are a couple things. First of all, just how much do people trust that AI is going to be something that's going to be beneficial? What's the sentiment? So, being able to do that in pulse surveys and employee engagement surveys, how many people are voluntarily raising their hand and saying, I want to use this tools? And then also, how much sharing is there going on? Just organically, grassroots sharing of best practices. Are people volunteering to lead lunchtime, lunch and learns? Are people having these informal conversations? What's the conversation going online in your collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams or Slack? So again, what's happening in terms of that trust and readiness? Again, you can measure the skills to see whether people actually have these skills. Are they using it in a practical way? And then, very importantly, what's the output? What's the impact on productivity and quality improvements? But also, are employees feeling good about this? Are they feeling like AI is actually helping them to get the work done that they want to do? Are they happier with their work because they don't have to do some of the tedious work? And then, very importantly, looking at AI agents. What is the actual performance of these? Are they creating value versus creating friction? Are employees confident about the output from them? And also understanding how much oversight do we actually have to have over these agents? Is it worth it to fine tune them, to customize them to the workflows that you have? So that's what I have for today. Again, you can get the slides at people bit.ly/people AI future. And I just have a couple questions here. Ramesh has this question. From your perspective, which sectors are more AI ready than others and which ones aren't? I don't think it's so much the industries. I think any industry that is very data focused, so things like finance in particular, have been working very quickly towards being able to use AI because a lot of it's very data intensive. There's a lot of knowledge workers and things that may not be so knowledge oriented, like manufacturing, may be slower. But in the reality is, in every single industry, knowledge is absolutely key and crucial to the success of the organization. So no organization is exempt from being able to use AI. And in every industry, in every sector, we see early adopters who are moving forward aggressively, very assertively, and others who are just like, I don't need to go there. Why do I need to go there? I'm going to wait. Just wait and wait and wait as long as I can. And so we see all types of adoption across every single industry. But I can say that there is no industry that is immune that is not going to be touched by AI. So you can choose whether you want to be on the leading edge. Okay, hopefully not too much of a bleeding edge, but be more assertive in your use of AI, or if you're going to hold back. Let's see. Lynn has this other comment. Mindset is so vital to success. A mindset of proactive customer alignment. Love that collaboration, prevention, and curiosity goes further than deep technical prowess. I so agree with this, and I think this is a great lead-in to my next my closing point today is that next week we're going to be talking about AI ready culture. So a lot of the things that Lynn just mentioned there, we're going to be talking about. What does it mean to have a culture that is AI ready? And we'll talk about what that looks like and talk about how culture actually changes and how you can be very intentional about setting a culture if you're a startup and start in creating a company, or how to be very intentional in creating the culture that you want, creating the culture that you need. So I hope today's conversation was helpful in giving you some guidance on how to prepare your people. And join me next week as we are moving into the space of talking about the culture, the beliefs and behaviors, the leadership, the way you do things, and how to make sure that your culture is ready to support your AI strategy. Until then, take care, everybody. Stay safe out there. Contact me and share with me the things that are working for you, the things that aren't. That's how I stay on top of it. By all means, please reach out and connect and share with me your takeaways and your challenges. All right, talk to you all next week. Thanks. Bye bye.